We are Pierre, Lisa, and our Labradoodle Tiller. Join us as we sail towards home after a 3-year circumnavigation. In our last video, we made a stop in Saint Martin, marking our final destination in the Caribbean before heading home. This stop in Saint Martin was special, as we were joined by friends and family who came to share this experience with us. We enjoyed good weather, delicious meals at local restaurants, and the stunning turquoise waters. We also had the chance to say farewell to other rally participants whose boats were in Saint Martin at that time. And despite the beauty of our surroundings, there was a sense of urgency to get underway due to the approaching hurricane season and unusually warm water. It was a bittersweet time filled with a whirlwind of activities and emotions. We knew this would be our last long passage with BioTrek. As we left Saint Martin for the open ocean, a friend came by on his kiteboard to say goodbye. Looking at the weather, this was going to be a challenging trip to make sure that we could cross the Gulf Stream in good weather. The weather showing you, Pierre?
Wind drops to 0, then switches to the east, then northeast, 23 knots before dying down. It's just here, which is between 27 and 28. Let's have a look at the weather. Get a look at the current. 27 and 28 Gulf Stream.
We left Saint Martin at noon, heading into the open ocean. By late afternoon, we encountered large swaths of sargasso weed drifting on the water surface. Sargasso weed is a type of brown seaweed that floats freely on the ocean. It doesn't anchor to the ocean floor, which allows it to form massive floating mats that can cover large areas of the ocean. While it plays a vital role in marine ecosystem, providing habitat and food for a variety of marine species, it can become a problem, especially during years when the oceans are warmer and the mats become extremely large. We didn't catch any fish on this trip because with the large amount of sargasso weed, it would just get tangled in the lines. We sailed on with a rising crescent moon and a beautiful hazy sunset. We motor sailed the first night and the first half of the second day with winds at about 7 knots. On the second day at sea, the wind finally piped up to 14 or 15 knots coming from the northeast at about 8 p.m. after dark. The skies remained clear, but there was a bit of banging because we were heading into the wind. It's our second night at sea on our passage from Saint Martin to Newport, Rhode Island. It's just getting a little bit rough. We took one reef in the main tonight, and there's absolutely no traffic in sight. And the moon is fairly bright. It's about a quarter moon, and so far so good. Sleeping inside, so I'm trying to take this outside, but there's a lot of wind noise, I suspect. Kind of a bittersweet sail. It's our last long passage with BioTrek, so not looking forward to the Gulf Stream, but we're doing a straight fetch from Saint Martin to Rhode Island so far. And the weather prediction is for pretty good winds. We only had to motor the first day, and the winds are just about right now. The seas could be a little calmer. I'm holding on to the leash of Tiller. She's just gone up to have a look. She can't get near the edge with this leash on, so we always keep her on a leash at night. When I go outside, she goes outside. When I go inside, she goes inside. she doesn't get much sleep at night either. It's a beautiful night just sitting outside looking at the stars. I'm listening to music, which I like to do on my night watch. I have a little speaker out, just enjoying this evening. I'm wide awake. I don't normally drink coffee at night, but Pierre needs sleep, so I had a coffee. And just reflecting on things, this last long passage. I just have a light sweater on and I'm kind of delighting and feeling a little bit cold. We've been kind of hot lately. I've just been kind of feeling hot. Brazil was very hot, and being in the marina just before we left was very hot. So I'm just kind of reflecting on, now I'm a little cold. I could go put another sweater on, but I'm kind of enjoying being a little cold. I know that sounds very strange. On the fourth day, the wind clocked around towards the south, and we were finally able to put the Jenniker up. But it was short-lived because later that evening the wind died and we had to take it down and put the Genoa back up. What a beautiful sunset at sea, with a vast, endless horizon where sky meets ocean. The entire sky was painted in vibrant hues of orange, with clouds catching the light. The sinking sun heralded another dark night at sea ahead of us. Well, we're about halfway through the trip. I've just come up on watch. It's been a bit of a difficult night. We went through a front with some lightning and storms. I tried to go in between two storms and it got complicated, so I woke up Pierre. He hasn't had a lot of sleep because he's been busy planning weather. We knew we had to go through this front. We still have wind. And then the wind's going to die a little bit later today, and then we really need to keep our speed up so we can get the Gulf Stream before the next northeaster blows through. And we will catch that northeaster on the other side of the Gulf Stream, but then we're going to be almost there. So that's the plan. Ducking into Bermuda doesn't look too great. They've got that storm going over them right now, so we'd have to hold back. And then there's the second northeaster coming. So it's been tight planning, and we called up Commander's Weather to make sure our plan made sense, which they said they did. So it's really just about keeping the speed up right now, and that's difficult when the wind is shifty. And right now we've lost a little bit. We're going between 8 and 10 knots, but we have to try to keep it up at 10 knots. So that's what's going on, and we have almost sunrise coming, so that'll be nice. It was a very dark night. There is some moonlit. The cloud cover was so thick that you couldn't see any moon, and just looking forward to get through this leg, which is turning out to be kind of challenging. Not for rough weather so much, but for the weather planning. We're getting close to Bermuda. There's our boat in red. Bermuda's up here. You can see our speed here at the top. And according to the speed, our ETA changes. And we really want that ETA to be around noon, like it was earlier today. 15 knots of wind. Going from the south-southwest. Here's our weather where we are today, and we'll take you through the different days. 24 hours from now, you can see there's less wind. We're through an area of no wind. The blue line here is the middle of the Gulf Stream, because I'm showing you wind, not Gulf Stream. And so if we keep our speed up, we get through the Gulf Stream with no wind, and then we hit the northeaster when we get on the other side, but at least we're out of the current. Some rough weather until we get into Newport. So I'll just play it again until our arrival. Again, the red boat is us, and it'll turn purple as you go through the different days. follow the boat, going through the Gulf Stream, hit the northeaster, and into Newport. Current map, where just put the blue line to follow the current. No sunrise this morning. Too cloudy. Another sunset, 3 more days to go, more weather modeling. Looks like we'll go through the Gulf Stream when we're kind of in the eye of this storm. So complete calm, and then when we get on the other side, we'll have a bit of a northeaster. So today, it's looking better, and we're just beside Bermuda. So let me show you that. Modeling, the purple boat is us, and as we go through, you can see where we reach the blue line, that's the Gulf Stream. We're in a complete calm. And then as we get through it on the other side, we'll have a bit of that northeaster. So you can see that. You can see the storm circling. And when we go through the Gulf Stream, we're going to be in the eye of it. And then it's going to keep turning. But they'll be at the tail end when we come through the Gulf Stream. And that's Biotruck, the green one. And the rest of the boats are all heading towards Bermuda, and we are right beside Bermuda right now. We're having a little schmoozy. It's now 19-20 knots. As the day wore on, the ocean started to build, and it was getting rougher. We just had a piece of chocolate, which was pretty nice to sweeten up the afternoon. We have Tiller. Oh, stay there, Tiller. Tiller's chilled out. I think it was a little rough earlier and she didn't like it, so she just went to sleep. Okay.
What a mess. We've been working on our crossing of the Gulf Stream for the last 3 days, more or less. And we're just about to enter the last part of our voyage, which is the most worrisome part for most people, which is the Gulf Stream crossing with bad weather around. So we're just sailing in between lows. In fact, we've opted to go right for a low, which is located here, which will basically make a big bubble of no wind at all. So whipping with all of the bad weather around, hitting the Gulf Stream with no wind is probably the best option.
So just to say that you're looking at two different maps of current. On the left is predict wind, and on the right is time zero.
That's it, exactly.
So they're both current.
Yeah. So there are some similarities because this is generated by infrared images coming from a satellite. So we can see that the big Gulf Stream flow matches on both sides here, more or less. So that's, we can deal with. Problem is, with the predict wind, in this example here, we have another counterclockwise rotation, which would be fine for us because we get less waves and a nice push in the back until we hit this part here. Problem here is it's exactly the opposite. So that's where we are now. So that's the position of the two boats. So as we go forward up to waypoint 2, which is I believe in about 3 hours, then we should be getting very close to this eddy here. So if, because the wind is from the west for another little while, so until about midnight tonight, I believe. So if we end up having big waves, it means that this one is
correct,
one we're getting.
because we'll have wind from the west going against the current.
The waves, so if you have big waves here, it's a good sign that over here will be pretty smooth because we get this. On the other hand here, if we get no waves, then we know this one was right, and then here we're going to get current on the nose. So who knows? All I know is that this part here, which is the one that really bothered us the most, is, you know, pretty at the same location according to the swing in the current, which is about the same location on both sides.
And do you want to show the wind here?
So that's what we're dealing with right now. The line in blue is the line that created to fake the Gulf Stream, and this is the wind map as of right now. And as you know, we keep moving forward the boat, we can see that the wind, the yellow band here, which is about 15 knots, keeps with us until about here. And this is where we're about to start to enter the Gulf Stream, the main axis of the Gulf Stream. And then the wind drops and drops
So
and drops.
you should have no wind in the main axis of the Gulf Stream.
Yeah, but there'll still be residual waves. And then we have a bit of a wind starting to build up from the west, northwest. And then the wind will switch over to the east, very light. But as soon as it does, then we're going to tackle to port, up to starboard, because we're in port now. And then the wind is really going to start to clamp up for our last leg up.
But we'll be out of the current. You just want to have your tummy rub.
Time zero says the wind is supposed to be, current is supposed to be from the east, and the seas are smoother, which means it's probably coming from the west.
Oh, the seas are definitely smoother right now, so...
See? This one says the current is coming from the west.
This says the current and wind are the same, and this one says current and wind are... Well, we're not actually entered the current yet, so we can't totally tell. Some people who've never been at sea think that we're always on vacation when we're sailing. But I think with this video you can see that sailing is pretty much like a full-time job when you're at sea. There's the current map. And the wind map. strategy seems to be working. It's very calm right now, and we're about to lose the wind, it looks like. But we'll have no wind going through the Gulf Stream, and hopefully it'll be just as calm as this. Hopefully. Alright, so it's our second last night. It's about 11 at night, and we're supposed to be in a no wind area, but we still have wind, and we're in the middle of the current, and it's really not that rough, so things are going well with this Gulf Stream crossing, at least so far. Our boat is here, and we are supposed to have lost the wind. But we still have 15, 17 knots of wind, and our boat speed is still good. And let me show you the current. And there we are. So we're really getting into the Gulf Stream now. And the wind is starting to drop, but not as much as predicted. Wind speed in gray, true wind direction. So that's what's going on here tonight. It seems like it should be more complicated, but easy is good. Tiller is just chilled out, and it seems like we should only have one more night, but we've got another night after this. There's still a bit of distance to cover before we get to Newport. Oh, she likes putting her head on a pillow. So we're just crossing the Gulf Stream, motoring. Storms behind us, and it looks like a front ahead. Just looking. She's just looking around. But I don't think she smells land yet. And what's going on inside? I'm making blueberry pancakes, and they look like they're just about ready to be flipped. Some already made, and a few more to make. On the sailing front, we're not going that fast. The wind's only 5 knots, so we're just being pulled by the motors. We have both on, which is a bit unusual. And if we look at the current, here we are, the red boat. You can see we're right in the middle of the Gulf Stream. And I think it's just about time to feed the dog. Tiller's waking up from a long night, a long sleepy night, a little rough at the beginning. Just waiting for your breakfast, right? Is that right, Tilla? Are you waiting for your breakfast? You're waiting for your breakfast? Oh yeah, you're gonna tilt your head because it looks really cute. Yes? Is that right? She always tilts her head when I talk to her. As we crossed the Gulf Stream, our dog Tiller was fixated on the stern of the boat, even though we weren't fishing. There, 2 tiny barn swallows clung to the boat, lost at sea. Had they built a nest on a ship that went to sea and maybe got lost? Clearly, barn swallows should not be in the middle of the Gulf Stream. Barn swallows typically mate for life. These 2 little birds were sticking close together until one of them suddenly took off and started flying around the cockpit. The mates soon joined in flying around the cockpit, and they seemed to know enough to stay away from Tiller, who was very interested in them. When we're at sea, we leave the cockpit doors open so that we can quickly go from inside the boat to the nav station, and these 2 little birds kept trying to come inside the boat. I shooed them out towards the food and water that I'd put outside for them. And then suddenly, one bird had gone. Had it flown away? So we let the remaining swallow, which looked exhausted, come inside the boat. It flew around looking for a place to settle. It flew around a bit and then rested by the nav station.
Tiller just had a bath.
We have 3 knots of wind. We're past the Gulf Stream and we're on the home stretch. And those little birds that kept trying to come in today, there's only one. I guess one of them flew off, but it was really insistent, and so we've let it stay. And I think it's probably going to spend the night. It's sleeping now, and it's just behind the computer screen. And I'll show you this little birdie. It's had Tiller a little upset, but she's not bothering it. And she was feeling jealous and needy because she knows it's there. So we have Tiller sleeping here. And we have a little birdie sleeping here. I don't want to get close to disturb it, but it's sleeping now. Are you jealous, my Tiller? Don't worry, we're not going to replace you with the bird. It's getting a little rough. It's getting foggy. Not too rough. A few bangs now and again. I had made a Mexican casserole in advance in preparation for rough seas, so we were able to have dinner. Pierre, what's the temperature like outside?
Cold. Like real cold, like Canada cold.
We didn't take a second reef. It's not that bad, it's just choppy.
Well, yeah. The waves are about 5 feet high.
I bet you if you can see how high they are, they're bigger than that. They were throwing me out of bed, so I came upstairs. It's our last night. It is cold. We have the door totally closed. I think that's like the first time in 4 years we've been sailing a night with the door closed. It's pitch black. It's foggy. The wind's at 18-20 knots. But it's kind of rough. We're getting close to destination. The bird is gone. Hey, get down, get down. Sure, get down. Get down. Sadly, our little bird friend had died that night and we gave it an at-sea burial. Ticking that you hear is our trusty little egg timer, which we use to remind us to take the logbook at exactly the right time.
Yes.
We haven't been called up by the Coast Guard yet.
No.
Or maybe when I was asleep. I heard them calling another boat last night and the other boat didn't reply. So I thought we would get called. So Pierre, you were just going to talk about how complex this trip was by the planning. You said we had to go 125 miles out of our way?
150.
150 miles out of our way to find the passage through the Gulf Stream.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, once we postponed the decision as long as we could. And as soon as we passed Bermuda, then the decision was made to hang way east to go to that spot here.
To go through that spot right there.
Which we found was the big low pressure coming in from this area here, just low after low after low. And then we managed to time it just as the low pressure was right in the middle of the low was here. So we came in with the wind because the low was proceeding, so a wind from the southwest. And as soon as we passed through it, the Gulf Stream crossing at the same time as the low pressure, the middle of the low pressure was there. And as soon as we passed it, then we ended up with the wind from the other side, the northeaster, the dreaded northeast, which since we were past the Gulf Stream wasn't an issue anymore, except not comfortable.
But actually the uncomfortable weather was just last night after the Gulf Stream, just because
but it was
going upwind.
It was the same low pressure flood coming from that low moving eastbound, swinging this way.
Right. But it was because we were more or less going upwind. When we decided to change sails and you turned downwind, it was like, why don't we just change direction and go to Florida?
That's why when you're around the world, you're supposed to go downwind, not upwind. And that's also why they say, gentlemen, don't go upwind.
Okay. I'm going to go and just do a little video outside. Oh, the dog doesn't like staying outside with the door shut. Oh, Tiller. I'll go out with her. She doesn't like... She's not used to the doors being shut. Not used to it. No flying fish. It's actually pretty nice outside. I mean, I'm dressed for it. I got the hat on also. With the sun, it's really warmed things up. So, pretty nice. Actually makes me feel glad to be back in the Northeast. But it was pretty cold this morning on the boat after it got colder and colder. And we're sitting inside. And you know, you're kind of immobile at night, which is not really conducive to staying warm also. But, yeah, it's actually pretty nice this morning. You're cold and you want in. You're not used to this weather, Tiller. But I let your fur grow. These are pretty flat and it's warmer with the sun. I still should have a jacket on, but not too bad. Got the full day. As we approached land, it got a little foggy, and then the fog cleared and a new navigational hazard showed up: wind farms and ships installing more windmills. We arrived around 7 p.m. and it was still bright daylight. It's so nice to be back in the Northeast with the long daylight hours in the spring. our arrival.
Back home
Our arrival after the around the world.
after a second round the world.
Yeah. And we have our niece coming to greet us, who's at the military college just right here in Newport.
Welcome home! Hello?
We have two naval officers welcoming us, and I'm even gonna let her tie it off. But it won't be uphill.
I was sitting there having my cocktail and I was like, I wonder if they're in town yet. Hold up marine traffic, here you are.
Hi, baby. Hello. Welcome home.
We arrived in time to get checked in by telephone that evening, had a beautiful sunset, and then went to bed to wake to a foggy morning. Newport Shipyard is a busy place, but it was quiet in the morning, and there were many boats around. The Imokas were getting ready for a race. These Imokas would be passing by our friends in the rally once they left Bermuda, heading towards Europe. Tiller was happy to be back on land, and we got to work putting the boat in order because we had someone coming to visit the boat. We had listed it for sale while we were in the Caribbean, and we had already had an offer. The captain's sitting there, and here's our niece back to give Tiller a hug. Here is some extra content of our time in Saint Martin. Tiller, it doesn't help if you stand on it. So Catherine found something on Tiller, and we were worried it's a tick, and I'm having a look, and it's definitely not a tick. It's a scab.
And who has a microscope on board?
And I could put an eyepiece on there to show the viewers, but it's really not worth it because it's so boring. It's totally a scab and it's not a tick. It's just a blob of, a blob of skin. She's waiting for us. Thank you, Catherine, for driving our car from Boston to Newport for us. Our next video will cover the top 5 most beautiful places, our scariest events, storms we faced, and other highlights.